unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello and welcome. Today, my tiny black cat Tomato spotted another black cat across the road in another apartment's window. This is a very exciting day for him, and I thought I'd share that with you. My cat has a new friend! And you know what else I'll share? What you're going to hear on tonight's show. Laughing gas. It's something that knocks you out before dental surgery. It's something hippies huff out of balloons at festivals. A relatively safe drug when administered properly. Not without side effects. But it turns out under certain conditions, laughing gas can be used to treat depression. And it's surprisingly effective. How do our brains light up when we're given whippets or N2O or nitrous oxide? And why does it work so well when someone doesn't respond well to traditional treatments for depression? That we'll find out as we have a laugh and do gas science, two of my favorite things, in about 10 minutes' time. Later in the program, what happened to the tiny green people that inhabited Atlantis? But probably the bigger question, did Atlantis ever exist? Or were ancient writings about the city more metaphor? Philosophical stories, not based in truth, but in lessons. We'll dig deep into the ocean, and deep into the unknown as we talk all things Atlantis halfway through the hour. And I hope it goes well, because the Discovery Channel just mentions the word Atlantis when they need ratings. I hope it works on this show too. Who knows? Maybe we'll discover little green men. All right, let's jump into the show.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
I'd like to tell you about a recent story that involves a parrot that got stuck in a tree, screamed "F*** you" at firefighters, and only agreed to come down when offered a cigarette. I'm not making any of this up. This bad bird had a nicotine addiction and an attitude problem, which frankly makes this the most relatable thing I've reported on in months. So this all went down in a small suburb in Sweden, where it would appear the wildlife is both hostile and demanding. Now, the local fire brigade was already out there on another call when they spotted the parrot stuck way up in a tree, just sitting there like it had given up on life and flying and decided to lean on emotional numbness. Now, technically, animal rescues aren't in the job description for Swedish firefighters, but according to their team leader, if they can help, they do help. Which is how you know this wasn't in the United States, because there, if you call 911 about a bird, they just send you an ambulance bill and maybe a cease and desist letter. Now, one of the poor Swedish firefighters got roped into climbing the tree, and the parrot, sitting 15 to 20 feet up, perched on a very narrow branch. Have you ever met anyone who chooses the most difficult, dramatic position possible and then complains about being stuck? This is that, but with feathers. And just when you think maybe the bird's scared, maybe it needs comfort, the parrot opens its beak and screams, "F*** you" at the rescue team, loudly, repeatedly, "F*** you." Now, I'm not saying this bird needs therapy, but I've had exes describe me as more emotionally regulated. I'm on no less than 4 psychiatric medications, but I digress. To be fair, the bird had been in the tree since 4 p.m. and didn't come down until 10. 6 hours of bird stubbornness. So from the parrot's perspective, more of a hostage situation up there, with profanity. The firefighters tried everything, coaxing, patience, dignity, nothing worked. Finally, the bird's owner stepped in and revealed its one weakness: cigarettes. That's right, the bird was lured down from the tree with a pack of smokes. A bird that's not just a pet, no, a bird that would appear to be a retired dock worker. Now, I don't know what's darker here, that the bird wanted cigarettes or that the owner knew it would. Like, oh, he doesn't respond to threats, only menthols. What is this bird's backstory? Did it do hard time? Now, after being offered the smokes, the parrot fluttered down, grumbling, I assume. He grabbed the ciggy, cussed out that rescue team one time more for good measure, and then bit its owner. Not once, multiple bites. Because when you get rescued from the brink, the obvious response is to assault someone. Still, the firefighter in charge of the ordeal insisted the parrot was charming and harmless, which is exactly what people say about their emotionally abusive relatives during a holiday dinner. Oh, Uncle Bobby, he means well. He just bites, screams obscenities, and eats cigarettes when he's anxious. Now, looking at this honestly, no one came out of it clean. The bird, emotionally unstable. The owner, clearly enabling substance use. The firefighters, they got insulted for hours by a rainbow-colored goblin with trauma issues. But still, everyone walked away. No injuries, no lawsuits, no parrot on fire headlines. So what did we learn? Parrots don't like being stuck up in branches. They do, sometimes, like cigarettes. And if you try to help one, you might just get verbally abused and bitten. So basically a metaphor for dating in your 30s. Look, I can't tell you if this bird was a genius or deeply broken. But I do know this. Any creature that refuses help, screams "F*** you," smokes when stressed, and bites the hand that feeds, should really be hosting this show. It's always the dolphins. You think they're smart, cute. You've seen them clap for fish. They star in motivational posters. But then you find out they're out here launching coordinated golden showers as a form of communication. That's right, they use urine to talk. And not in the privacy of their little undersea bungalows either. No, I'm talking about Amazon river dolphins. And they do it midair, publicly, proudly, artistically even. Recently, researchers watched male dolphins roll over at the surface of the water and aim their, let's call it splash zone, and spray a glorious fountain into the air. Nearly 70% of the time, another male dolphin swam over that patch of warm water, presumably to sniff, to interpret, maybe even respond. It seems like less of a biological accident and more like a choreographed message. That's right, researchers found dolphin Morse code, but with bodily fluids and fewer social boundaries. And as it happens, this isn't just some aquatic frat boy prank. Scientists think that urine fountains might be how dolphins show off their social status, how they brag about their physical condition. I imagine dolphins say to each other something like this: "Look at the arch on that stream. Taut must be ripped." It's sort of like an Instagram thirst trap. But with the byproducts of actual thirst. And in doing this, dolphins aren't alone. Turns out animals of all kinds are talking behind our back with urine. And when researchers spend all their time looking for this animal behavior and finally observe it, I imagine they say, "Urine luck." Get it? Get it? Urine luck? Yeah, you're welcome. Now, speaking of other animals who aren't dolphins who do this, primates dab it on themselves like cologne. And as you might not know, primates are our distant cousins, which raises two important questions. One, are they doing this to try to get lucky? And two, is this how Axe body spray was invented? Lobsters go to the bathroom from their faces, which feels like something Freud would have a lot to say about. Sticklefish, and I'm saying that like I know what that animal is and I've never heard the name and it's funny, sticklefish make number ones to find immune-compatible mates. And I got to admit, that's more rigorous than most dating apps. I mean, how often have you thought, I wish I could smell a dude's kidney function before I agreed to dinner? According to scientists, we humans are too hung up on sight and sound. We're ignoring a whole world of smell-based conversation. Because sure, dolphins might talk in squeaks and chirps, but also with their strategically timed tinkles. Meanwhile, humans pretend going to the bathroom is some embarrassing accident instead of what it truly is, the world's most underappreciated group chat where you can show off your skills. So the next time you're out there swimming and you feel something warm nearby, don't freak out. Someone or something, likely an animal, might just be saying hello. Unless there's kids swimming nearby. We all know what kids do in water. When we come back, a study on laughing gas. Not just that it's been used to treat depression successfully, but what happens to our brains and what happens to mice brains when they're given the laughing drug. Their circuitry lights up and, I don't know, a neuroanesthesiologist is going to walk us through it and answer your questions as to whether laughing gas is the new golden ticket to treat depression.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. broadcasting relationship truths and scientific discoveries with a comedian's touch. The Last Show with David Cooper.
People are inhaling laughing gas, nitrous oxide, and I'm not just talking about at the dentist or out of a balloon at a music festival. They're using it to treat depression. Scientists say it might actually work, but they're not 100% sure how. So let's dive in with someone who's researching this. His name is Dr. Joseph Cichon. He's a neuroanesthesiologist at the University of Pennsylvania. Joe, thanks for talking to me today.
David, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So why does something that knocks you out for dental surgery, I mean, that's the classic use of laughing gas. I'm thinking of the movie Little Shop of Horrors with Steve Martin's character. Why does something used for that also help for depression? This is kind of an interesting novel use. I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, so it's a fascinating question. And in fact, since the discovery of the gas over 180 years ago, humans have been experimenting with this gas kind of routinely and using doses that we would say are subhypnotic or psychedelic in nature. But for all this time, it hasn't really been sort of studied at these concentrations. What dentists often use is a heavier or larger dose concentration of nitrous oxide, which gives you the sedation that is desired for a procedure like that. But, back in London in the 1800s, people were having laughing gas parties using it at this sort of subhypnotic psychedelic dose range.
I mean, if you've been to a Grateful Dead concert, people are still having laughing gas parties.
That's right. That's right. And in fact, what really prompted this was work from the University of Chicago and Washington University in St. Louis. And a group of researchers were investigating this dose range in the context of treatment-resistant depression and found a really remarkable effect in that this dose range induced a rapid change in depressive symptoms of patients who failed many, many treatments with regards to serotonergic agents like an SSRI.
So when you say many treatments, you mean like talk therapy, you mean like drugs, you mean like all kinds of tools to try to treat that depression aren't working. And then what does the dose look like? What does the actual treatment look like? I imagine it's not a hippie sucking it out of a balloon, and I imagine it's not someone in a dentist chair sucking it out of a mask, or maybe it is. What does the treatment look like?
So in these trials, they used a fixed concentration, meaning that the concentration is controlled by little knobs on a ventilator, and they dial in the concentration typically between 25 and 50%, and they hold it at that concentration for about an hour. Patients inhale this gas, goes into their lungs, gets to their brain, and they do it for an hour. The exact details of that duration and that concentration is needed is unclear at this time. So I tried to mimic in this study exactly what they were doing for humans, but in rodents.
And you looked at the brains.
Yeah, so the technique that I use is a really cool form of microscopy, meaning I have this fancy microscope that can shine light through a glass window and image directly into the brain. And so you're seeing in real time what neurons do and trying to decode or reverse engineer how the drug works.
And a switch flips, you notice a real change in the brain after a dose of nitrous oxide like this, and this is in mice, right?
Yeah, so this is in mice. So this gas is small. It's basically three elements. It's two nitrogens and one oxygens, N2O. And this gas goes everywhere. So it goes throughout the entire body, the brain. And for whatever reason, I made the observation, because it hasn't been done before, even though it's been around forever, it's just not been studied in this way, that this gas somehow turns on a unique subset of neurons. And this would have not been predicted just based on this gas at these levels of concentrations is everywhere and permeating every cell, but seems to really have specificity, which is interesting. And the cell type that I describe in this work has actually been thought to be the principal actor of serotonergic psychedelics. So there's some type of convergence occurring between psychedelic agents, which I find fascinating.
Simplify that a bit for me. You lost me a bit. Just at the end there, it acts in your brain the same way as something like LSD or mushrooms. Like, how would you say that in lay?
Yeah, so folks investigating like LSD, psilocybin, they, for the most part, all come to the agreement that these drugs are working through a certain type of receptor, right? It's a serotonergic receptor. That receptor lives in the same cells as those getting activated by nitrous oxide, is what those sort of thinking is. And so there might be a commonality between psychedelic agents in that they're kind of working through the same cell in the same areas of the brain that might give rise to, these striking therapeutic effects that we're all sort of interested in.
Let's go back to people. So someone's sitting there with a mask on, they're getting a certain percentage of oxygen, enough to, not pass out, and nitrous oxide as well. What are the effects they report during and then after? My understanding, and I only know this because I've never done it before, someone who isn't me told me, nitrous oxide, when you inhale it for recreational use, again, not me, I don't know this, it's got like a very quick onset, and then when you stop inhaling it, you kind of feel normal again in like 30 seconds to a minute. What are people in this trial reporting?
So in the trials that I referred to, they're reporting a bunch of different symptoms. Some of them are undesired. Some of them are sort of trip-like in that they feel a disconnection from their body. They have some type of hallucination. They have some out-of-body experience. The question of whether that is useful for the therapeutic effect is still unclear. But what you mentioned is really, really surprising, is that the drug is very fast on, very fast off. And for most people, this is probably a good thing. But what my thinking is that in patients that have significant depression, the effects of the drug, even though the drug is out of the body, might be long-lived. And so in this paper, I describe activity that is hours later. So in those mice, there's no drug, but the activity is persistent. And so we think that has something to do with neuroplasticity. And so the drug, even though it's very short-lived in the body, the effects might be quite substantial and carrying on and producing changes in the brain.
Are there side effects, vitamin deficiencies I've heard of for regular people who abuse the drug for recreationally, or maybe abuse isn't the right word, but use it recreationally a lot? Are there any negatives to this? Is it a risky drug?
Yeah, so if you breathe high concentrations of the drug, you will have low oxygen levels, and they call that hypoxia, and that can be a concern, and that can cause death. So it has to be done with, of course, close supervision. And then, yes, chronic use results in a vitamin B12 deficiency, which would impair DNA. This has been described years ago when we used to use nitrous oxide pretty much routinely in the operating room for patients. And so you have to be careful, and you have to provide some B12 supplementation if you're going to be chronically using.
These findings are promising and those side effects are manageable. Do you see a future where nitrous oxide treatment could be used for depression?
I do see that. And I think there is reason to believe that in the right sort of providers, we can roll this type of therapy out. But I think probably its ultimate use would be in conjunction with psychotherapy. And similar to psychedelics, where you probably want to do some preparatory work, have some type of drug exposure, and then integrate some of this information, I think is ultimately what's going to be the most bang for your buck with regards to getting a therapy out of this.
Joe, I've appreciated the chat. Thanks for coming here.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Joseph Cichon is a neuroanesthesiologist at the University of Pennsylvania. And if you can say neuroanesthesiologist fast 5 times, I don't know. It's hard, I guess is what I'm saying. Up next, the lost continent of Atlantis. We'll explore the unknown. Who lost it? Is it in the lost and found? What are the ancient accounts of Atlantis, and what are some likely places today, well, likely is a strong word, where Atlantis could have been? Put on your mystery caps. We're talking to green aliens from Atlantis or something like that. Up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. This is your nightly dose of chaos, confession, and questionable life choices. The Last Show with David Cooper.
The lost continent of Atlantis. What's there? Little green men, fish. Does it even exist? We are here with Noah Cappe, TV host. It's Noah versus the unknown versus David Cooper. I'm planning on arguing with you today, Noah. Welcome to the show.
You know, David, you might be surprised. There may not be as big an argument here as you think. This is going to be a fun one. Nonetheless, we're going to break it down. Atlantis, one of the most famous mysteries.
This one holds a special place in my heart because as a kid, I daydreamed about it. I must have seen something on the History Channel or the Discovery Channel or something. But it was one of those like a lot of kids get obsessed with UFOs and aliens. I wanted to find Atlantis.
Yeah.
I don't know how I was going to do it. The only contact I'd have with the ocean was every Christmas when I got dragged to my grandparents' place in Florida. But I was going to find it, and I never did, and maybe tonight we will.
Listen, this is one of those, you nailed it. This is UFOs, this is aliens, this is all the unknown stuff, but on the ground. This is the feeling that it didn't just float around, that it came from space, that it was like here, that we're close to it, that we're a part of something.
As a kid, I played with Play-Doh. I ate it. It probably made me as stupid as I am today, that and the paint chips. But let's start with Play-Doh, and I'm not talking the stuff kids mold around with. I'm talking the philosopher, the philosopher Play-Doh.
Oh, wow.
Is his manuscripts the first source that we have?
I mean, what did you, I'm not listening to anything you said after you did that wacky little segue.
I mean, transitions, I'm the best in the biz. That's why they pay me the big bucks.
Best in the biz. Well done. Play-Doh.
As far as I'm concerned, maybe he wasn't the first one to think about it, to see it, to know it, but his manuscripts are the first known written accounts of what Atlantis was.
This is a Quentin Tarantino movie moment where we can kind of like start the journey at the end of the story, because the truth of the matter is Plato, a distant relative of his Solon, and an Egyptian priest. These three characters are the only people in the history of this planet that talk about, address, or acknowledge anything about Atlantis. Okay. And all of it technically comes back to Plato. It's a he said situation.
Plato was known for his parables, though. He was known to describe fictitious things to teach lessons. Maybe that's what this was, but maybe that's what this wasn't. Maybe Atlantis really existed. What do the early accounts have to say about the Atlanteans?
Right. Well, see, the interesting thing is, as you're saying, is that Plato is obviously known for using a lot of storytelling and things to share his theories, his beliefs.
Metaphors.
Yeah, exactly. Solon was much more of a traditional kind of like structured thinker. It doesn't really have any track record of sharing, wacky stories, things, whatever. It was more into like mathematics, things, whatever. Solon apparently, around 600 BC goes to Egypt and meets with a priest who tells him about a civilization that existed and was lost in a day and a night, like swallowed by water 9,000 years ago. So the interesting part is 9,000 years from 600 BC is floating around 9,600 BC, which is right in the tail end window of the Younger Dryas impact, which is the big event that when I'm on the show with you, we often talk about, because a lot of sites like Göbekli Tepe and things that happened around that time seem to be this reset button on the planet, that there was a reset button event that wiped out anything that was here before. So that is interesting. That time frame does kind of fall into this unique thing, but we have no documentation from the Egyptians anywhere. There's apparently a temple that has hieroglyphs that talk about Atlantis, but guess what? That temple got smashed and buried under the Nile, and we can't find whatever. This is one of those where there's a whole bunch of fun evidence to prove it today. But if you go back to the original moment, I don't know.
Well, it could be a story about flying too close to the sun, like Icarus. The Sodomites were having too much fun. God punished them. Plato said the gods sank Atlantis for being too arrogant, which is honestly relatable.
Yeah.
I tend to think this is a parable, but let's talk about potential sites for it, because there are some quote-unquote archaeological pieces of evidence. They're obviously not strong. They're obviously not widely believed, but they're fun to think about.
Yeah, I mean, in Plato's accounts, and again, this is one of those where people think, glowing green stones and flying crafts and all this stuff about Atlantis that we were told. None of that is true. The only thing that is mentioned in his writings, other than that there were mountains full of riches, that there was water that exited to the south, that it was circles of land and water, the only thing was that it was a very intelligent civilization that had unbelievable archaeology, that their building was fantastic. But there's no mention of advanced technologies. We, as storytellers, have sprinkled that on over the years. So that's an important thing for people to realize. But two sites I think stand out to both of us. And what's on your list for locations?
The Eye of the Sahara.
Yeah, the reshot structure.
Which, all conspiracy theories, all unknown antiquity theories, all things aside, just this natural structure, the Eye of Sahara. If you don't know what it is, just Google it, because it looks amazing from satellite view.
If you said to AI, create an image on Earth that would instantly convince someone that Atlantis was real, the reshot structure is it. It literally looks like Atlantis. It is a circle with rings around it. It is in an area of the Sahara that in 9,000, 10,000 BC was a lush green part of the world. There is water, clear watermarks, massive flooding that you can see in the ground from satellite views. And it seems to depict that water did flow right through this structure, exited out of the south. There are mountains that are known for gold and all kinds of riches directly to the north of it, as Plato said. And those mountains are named after Atlas, Atlantis, so there are some interesting connections there.
There is one small minor point here, though. There's not any archaeological evidence of people or civilization there.
But this is the tough one, right? Because it's like, if you said to the average person, how long do you think it would take for somebody to land on this planet and not know that we today were here? Skyscrapers, buildings, all of that stuff. The answer isn't as long as you think. In 1,000 years, most of this would be gone. In 2,000 years, you would need technology to know what was here. So if you're talking about 10, 11,000 years ago, you could argue that whatever was there is long gone.
And with this impact event or flooding event that you talk about, nature's reset, it's sort of like when nature takes a lorazepam.
Yeah.
The water could erode away. And as far as I know, there haven't been like major digs in the Eye of the Sahara.
It's an unbelievable difficult location, not only to access, but to live, to survive, to function, to get equipment, the funding. Nobody wants to put money into these kinds of things. It's an area that there's a particular YouTuber who's really pushing this angle. He's on Rogan all the time, kind of like, this is the spot, this is it. It's tough. There's no evidence other than these kind of references that Plato makes, which you can argue about other locations like the Minoans. There's an amazing site filled with a very advanced archaeology that has a backstory about a volcano that buried and ended the civilization, that this could be a place where Atlantis existed.
Well, that honestly fits with Plato's account of the gods punishing Atlantis for being too arrogant. When we come back, we'll find out what that other place is and why it might be good evidence for little green Atlanteans, or maybe just normal skin-colored Atlanteans. Noah Cappe is here. He's a TV host, and it's Noah Cappe versus the unknown. I bet you didn't know what I was going to do there.
It was unknown to me.
Yeah, long pause. Very creative. We'll be back with more Noah in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Broadcasting intimate details and useless information from an undisclosed location in New York City. The Last Show with David Cooper.
We are discussing the ancient civilization of Atlantis. Could it have existed? What could it have looked like? I'm here with Noah Cappe. It's Noah versus the unknown.
A live reboot. It's so cool, and we get to see you actually uploading the new software. That sounded wild.
Brainworkingprobably.com. It's my new website. Noah, let's go back to some of the written accounts of Atlantis and where those locations that were written about might have been.
Well, the Minoan Atlantis, the island of Crete. There's an amazing special on TV. A group of researchers believe wholeheartedly that this location is part of the original Atlantis. There are structures there. There are buildings. There are unbelievable archaeological accomplishments and an unbelievable astronomical component to these sites as well. Drainage, also things that just seemed unbelievably advanced for the time, for the people, the art, the structure when they 3D render it to what it was originally is very impressive. We're not talking a circular structure anymore, but we are talking an advanced civilization.
The real conspiracy here is when the Discovery Channel is struggling for ratings, new locations, new theories, new evidence emerges for Atlantis. Walk me through what that could have looked like.
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, we're all going off of these, this handful of written, who knows, from Plato, which we have to also remember that afterwards he writes again about the Atlanteans in a war with Athens, with Athenians. That there was this war that happened between whatever, the timeline, all of it. I mean, those are moments where it's like, okay, clearly that didn't happen. So now we do have a doorway into you acknowledging that there is a component to this that is
fiction,
conjecture that is, it's tough. To me, the Minoan component is just another example of an unbelievable advanced civilization that was able to do way more than we give people credit for. But I don't necessarily see the dot connecting to Atlantis.
Sunken places that were once above water, or even sites underwater that look like they could have been a civilization. Are there any pieces of evidence like that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the writings talk about Swallowed by Water and A Day and a Night, that it was water that was the kind of the ending of Atlantis. There's theories about the Gates of Hercules that Plato wrote about, that it was just past that, which is kind of like an entrance coming in to the, if you're looking at the map, like the western side of Europe, a beautiful channel that leads in towards Greece. Those are the Pillars of Hercules. So there's theories in there. I mean, there's even the Bermuda, the Bimini Road, this underwater road that is clearly stones that have been laid out and goes for this unbelievable distance. And for it to be underwater now, you're going back again to a time frame where it had to have been thousands and thousands and additional thousands of years ago.
Where does the road lead? What's along the road?
I mean, we can't talk about that here. We can't do that right now. Where does the road lead? Where does it go? It fizzles out, but it's filled with, all of this stuff is so frustrating because it's always like, is this a natural stone? Does nature do this on its own? Or are these stones breaking and cutting in these kind of geometrical shapes and laying themselves on their own? The Bimini Road is, there was something there. Again, I don't know if it's Atlantis, but there's no way you can look at the images of that find in Bermuda and say it's a natural occurrence.
Well, if it's in Bermuda, it's got to be a mystery, right? It's got to be aliens. What was there something in the 90s where every time aliens came up, Bermuda, like I was scared to fly over the Bermuda Triangle in the 90s. And now it's like we don't talk about it much anymore.
I just remember their shorts being a really big deal.
That too. Let's get speculative here. What would the Atlanteans, what would they have looked like in our wildest dreams? Let's get way out there. Definitely not any basis in truth or fact or evidence, but like Plato was saying they were super advanced. What would an advanced civilization with unimaginable technology, at least thousands of years ago, look like?
Yeah. No mention of anything unusual. He doesn't mention anything one way or another. It doesn't say that they were white, black, or brown. Doesn't say that they were green, yellow, or red. It really doesn't address anything in that world in any way, shape, or form. So we're kind of going a little bit unknown. The theory is, if you believe that Atlantis is real and that the Atlanteans were a civilization, it's massive. It isn't just this one facility. They're talking about 10 kingdoms, bigger than the size of Liberia and Asia. I mean, a massive, massive footprint on the planet, where Atlantis was really kind of the heart of trade, of the civilization. Apparently a massive, see, again, this is interesting, a massive monument to Poseidon in the heart of Atlantis. Now, Poseidon in 9,000 whatever, this is something that the Greeks created. So the Egyptians wouldn't have been able to say that it was Poseidon because they didn't know who that was. So is this, again, Plato massaging a story to make it fit in and make it more relatable to the people?
If Atlantis was in fact not real, and Plato was trying to teach us a lesson, something about human arrogance, maybe even a modern lesson about climate collapse and flooding, what would be the message there?
It didn't work. We didn't listen. I mean, as we're standing at the threshold of another climate event, listen, no matter what you believe in, we're dealing with a wacky time right now with the planet. So, unfortunately, I don't think we learn much, but how many seconds till midnight on the clock, on the doomsday clock?
Doomsday clock? It's 12:01 probably. I mean, it's already.
Well, good night, everybody.
This is purgatory. The world's already over. We're already in hell.
Thanks for finishing your ride with us.
It seems like Atlantis is part of every new age brand. Why do you think that is?
It's you said it at the beginning. I think it just holds a magical place in all of our hearts. There's that little kid, in all of us that still daydreams, that wishes, that thinks about that Indiana Jones discovery of the hidden tunnel that leads to a magical discovery, and answers the big question of why are we here? What the heck is this? And what's going on?
And you're here to answer that. Why are we here? What the heck is this? And what is going on?
Family. Love.
Yeah, I agree. Meaning's what you make of it.
I think, 10,000 people at death's door say, no one says, I wish I worked harder. I wish I made more money. They say, I wish I spent more time with family. I wish I had cared less what people thought of me. It's the same thing. We all know it. It's just hard to live it day to day. Well,
they say you can't take it with you in the grave, but if you have someone you really trust, they'll put the money in the coffin for you.
I mean, the Egyptians certainly believed you could take it with them. It's just like, let's load up this room with as much stuff.
And they were right for many years, but eventually the tomb gets found and people, disrupt it.
Yeah.
Noah, what a pleasure it is to have you on the show, he said a minute before our time was over.
Listen, we are crossing off some big ones here. We've talked about the pyramids, the Sphinx, Göbekli Tepe, Atlantis. We've covered some great ones. If we do get a chance to come back, I think I think your audience is ready to dive a little deeper.
I think so too. What are we going to dive into?
Well, the Voynich manuscript is something that if you have time next week, I would love to come back and talk to you about. It's an unbelievable book written sometime in the 1400s that still today, even with AI, they can't decipher.
I'm looking forward to talking to you about that. What could it have? What could it contain? And why can't we decode language from a long time ago without using beep, boop, bop, bop computers?
You got 1 week to crack the code, buddy.
Questions will be questioned. Answers will be answered with Noah Cappe next week. Noah, what a pleasure it was to have you on the show.
That might be my new tagline.
Answers answered, questions questioned.
See you next time, buddy.
Brain still not working. When we come back, economists have looked at how much your pet makes you happy and how much money your pet is really worth to you. From a happiness point of view, your pet's as good as a spouse. And from a money point of view, Little Mittens is worth almost $100,000 to you. Don't believe me? Find out more after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The show that asks the questions other shows are afraid to ask. The Last Show with David Cooper.
A new study says your little cat Fufu might be just as good as having a spouse. In fact, a pet's love could be worth up to $90,000 a year in your happiness. So, is that unconditional love, and is it cheaper when it comes with fur and a weird smell and weird routines? I am so excited to talk about pet companionship with Dr. Adelina Gschwandtner, who's an economist at the University of Kent in the United Kingdom. Adelina, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
The basic premise of your research is that a pet could boost your well-being as much as a husband, a wife, a spouse, a girlfriend, a boyfriend. It's an eye-catching headline. Let's talk about your study. Is that really what you found?
Yes. So the method that I applied in order to estimate this is called the life satisfaction approach. And it's normally used to put a monetary value on things that don't have one, like clean air, like green space, like scenic amenity. And I thought while teaching it, then why not using it in order to put a value on pets? And then I found these studies that use the same method in order to put a price tag on friends, or meeting with friends and family, or even talking to neighbors. So I thought, why not doing this for pets? And I can tell you how the method works.
Please do. I'm insanely curious. I'm just thinking about my little cat Tomato. That's his name. I mean, I call him Kitty, and how my girlfriend gets so much joy and love out of this cat. I think she loves the cat more than me, and I think the cat makes her more happy than me. And I'm not even upset because the pet makes her so happy. So tell me about the methodology.
So it's econometrically very simple. It's a linear regression, and you have on the left-hand side the life satisfaction, and on the right-hand side the life event that you want to value, in this case pet companionship, and income. So you estimate the impact that the life event has on life satisfaction and the impact that income has on life satisfaction, and you set them into relation to each other. So it's kind of calculating an implicit rate of substitution between income and the specific life event. And this is a method which is really, really widely used. So I was thinking, why not doing that for pets as well? And the values for being married and being, in a relationship, they have been calculated by other studies and using the same method and a very similar data set for the UK population. So it's not that was my premises. Actually, I was quite surprised when I found the result. But then when I talked to people and I saw that most people consider their pets as being like family members or even friends, I thought maybe this isn't that surprising anymore.
Is it diminishing returns? Like if I become a crazy cat man and buy 10 cats, am I going to be 10 times as happy? Is that going to be worth $900,000? Or does it decrease very quickly when you increase the number of pets?
So we haven't looked exactly how the number of pets. It's just a dummy, right? Whether you have one or not. And unfortunately, we couldn't even look at other type of pets, and I do not wish to underestimate the value of other pets. So I presume it is diminishing, but it depends on each personality. For me, I have 2 cats, and I found this is my equilibrium. When I try to have more, kind of stressed. So for me, 2 was the equilibrium.
I have a friend who's a musician and has a good job also. And he says, I own exactly as many guitars as my wife will allow me to own. I feel like that's how the perfect number of pets is the exact number your partner will allow at maximum. Does this give insight into why we pour money into our pets? For example, when I bought my cat, I adopted it, and the adoption fee, I think, was $90. And I turned to my friend who was with me who owned some cats, and I said, wow, cats are so cheap. And he just started laughing because I thought $90 would be the end of it. And then I went to the vet for the first time. So I guess my question is, does this give insight into why we pour so much money into our pets for their foods, for their toys, and when they get sick?
I presume it is so. I just noticed I'm recently on Facebook. I haven't used Facebook before. And now I get a lot of advertisement related to cat toys or different cat foods. And I'm surprised by myself how effective this seems, because I already bought some of the toys from there, which I would have never normally bought because I would find them severely overpriced. But because you speak about the vet cost, I think it is very important to try to put the right monetary value on pets, because in the UK now there is a discussion in Parliament about custody in case of a divorce. And at the moment, pets are valued at their purchase value, like $90. So the person who moves out just compensates the other one with $90, which I think is outrageous.
It's insane. For some people, those pets, if you're a millionaire, your pet could be worth $100,000 to you. And if you don't have very much money at all, still it could be worth most of your net worth in terms of what you're willing to pay.
And also, when you think just about the vet cost, that is not really a good estimate, because the person remaining with the pet might not be able to afford. And I know I have friends that had to give up their pets because they couldn't afford after the divorce the vet cost. So I think what this study tries to do, what I would like to do with my study, is to put the right value on pets, because I think most people, even the people who have a pet companionship, do not understand how valuable pets are to them.
They should be treated as somehow not property. Like, you can't, no offense, you can't put a value on a child in a divorce. You can't say, oh, little Timmy's worth $50,000. People really do feel like pets are part of their family. And I guess your study just reaffirms that. Does your study reveal anything about people who don't have pets, who don't like pets? Do you think they could be happier if only they tried?
So we do have personality traits in our study. And we do find that people who have a pet companion, so adopted a pet, on average, they are more open to new experiences, more conscientious, and they are more extroverted. So there is a difference between cat people and dog people. So the cat people are less extroverted and more open to new experiences. And dog people are more extroverted. So there is a bit of a difference between the two, but overall, compared to people who do not have pets, right? People who have pets have these traits stronger, significantly.
You know what? I was more neurotic about like cleanliness and keeping my home super clean and not disordered and my things not getting ruined. And having a cat allowed me to let things go a little more. For example, I just bought a new couch and I'm like, if he scratches it, he scratches it. Before, I would have been super uptight about it. And I feel like this relaxation and letting things go applies outside of the home too. I am more open to new experiences. I can't describe that link, but somehow it's there.
This is true. This is fully true.
Big takeaways here is the main thing you're looking to inform people about is how much pets really make us happy, and maybe inform governments and courts that they're worth a little bit more in their proceedings.
Yes, there is also another thing in the UK. I don't know if this is in the US the case as well. People who are renting out an accommodation, they are allowed to say in the advertisement that there are no pets and children allowed.
It varies by province in Canada. It varies by state in the US, but commonly they're allowed to say no to pets.
And I think this needs to be loosened up. I mean, maybe there could be a negotiation about the deposit, so that in case somebody moves out and the house is damaged, they can keep rather the deposit. But I don't think it should be possible to write in an advertisement that no pets and children are allowed. So, but main motivation for me was to try to find out what this value is and to encourage, governments or institutions to enable more easy access to pets. So, for example, the University of Kent, where I'm working, around exam times, they have a dog coming to the library. And his name is Coco, and this helps students to release stress.
Well, Adelina, thanks so much for joining me. This was a great conversation. I enjoyed going through your study. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Adelina Gschwandtner is an economist at the University of Kent. Up next, it's more on pets. Turns out we trust them more than people when things are hawked at us online. That's right. We'd rather buy something recommended by a pet or marketed with a pet than some rando with a video camera, an influencer. But why do we trust mittens so much? Find out more next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. When the day is done, we're just getting started. The last show with David Cooper.
A dog with sunglasses might market you peanut butter better than a person, which is to say, we trust pets online more than influencers. We trust pets more than people, probably because they've never tried to sell us crypto. Why do we believe animals are more sincere on social media than those pesky, annoying humans? We'll answer that with Dr. Laura Lavertu, an assistant professor in marketing at the University of Strathclyde in Scotland. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So what exactly makes a pet a more persuasive spokesperson than a regular person online?
Yeah, well, I think, people are tired of just being, constantly exposed to sponsored content, honestly, myself first. They're just increasingly skeptical when it comes to influencers, especially human influencers. They constantly endorse brands they do not always, believe in. Sometimes they even haven't tried the product they're endorsing. Pets, on the other hand, they just bring something different. They just, the first thing you feel when you see a pet is usually like a positive emotion. It catches your attention. Whereas when you see human influencers, you may compare yourself to them, you may be biased, you may have to jealous, happens as well. You may ask yourself what they want to sell. Pets don't have a hidden agenda like that. They just don't try to convince you to buy anything. The owner might.
It's kind of curious because the owner has that hidden agenda, and that owner is technically trying to sell you sponsored content in these ads, or an advertiser is trying to sell you something. But we see a pet and something triggers in our brain to trust it more. It's kind of curious because we shouldn't really trust it more, should we?
Yeah, exactly. That's why we actually looked at sincerity perceptions. We could have looked at other kind of aspects that could lead to the same effect, but we looked at sincerity because we thought, well, what is it that make them different? And the first thing is what you think, they never deceive you. That's pretty much the thing. So we conducted several interviews as well. They are not part of that project, but we did some other interviews and people were just like, well, I don't compare myself to them. I don't have all these things that I would have with human influencers or human endorsers. And plus I know they don't have any hidden agenda. I know they're not like trying to make up something. They're not trying to convince me to do anything. So it's just really that first thought that you have that is kind of like overpowering the actual owner behind it, obviously.
Is it the pet's cuteness? Is it some perceived facial expression on the pet that may or may not be there? Or is something deeper going on? Why do we trust pets?
Yeah, well, actually, we wanted to move away from cuteness because the first thing you think is, well, pets are cuter than humans most of the time. It depends. But we actually measured cuteness and it wasn't impacting the effect that was happening. It wasn't impacting the results. And what we did, we went even further. And in the first study, we actually looked at, we created fictitious posts, right? And we had just the paws of the dog for the dog. And then we had just hands because we wanted to get rid of that kind of attractiveness, cuteness aspect. And so we had the same results just with the paws, right? So it's not really the cuteness. It might add to that, definitely. But when it comes to influencers, it's really about convincing you. And it's not coming from cuteness when it comes to pet influencers.
I was a former software developer before I started working in radio. So I might get targeted ads for some nerdy software thing, a server, cloud computing, or maybe I'm really into wine and I could really take a good recommendation from a sommelier. Would I trust a pet selling me a specialized thing like a bottle of wine more than I would an expert sommelier?
Well, in our study, we looked at wine, actually. We had a cat advertising a wine. And I guess it depends, how you frame it as well. So in our post, it was the cat was talking and was just saying, well, my owner really liked that product, really liked that wine. It's a great way to kind of spend the evening. So obviously, I think we haven't tested that. That would be an interesting avenue for future research. But I think as long as it's credible and you're not just kind of obviously saying something that's just not credible at all. As long as it's coming from like a perception or a kind of genuine recommendation, then it works, or at least it works in our study.
So if we perceive the pet's owner as an expert, so they know something about the wine, we would rather have the pet sell us wine than the expert themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that much about expertise, to be honest, because we weren't saying anything too technical about the wine. It was really about, oh, it's a nice wine for my owner. My owner really liked it. So again, it's just, like human influencers are persuasive because, again, they kind of giving their genuine opinion on something. Well, in that case, it's the same, but with the pet. So the pet might be saying, well, my owner really liked it, or I saw that my owner really liked it. And it seems just more genuine because it's coming, again, from a pet that has no hidden agenda, or so it seems.
Let's look at us as people online. What does it say about us that we trust pets more than people at this point?
Well, I don't know if I think it's a funny thing. I'm not really surprised, to be honest. Again, when we conducted the interviews, it was really kind of the obvious thing that was coming back most of the time is that, well, they're never going to deceive you. They're never going to do anything on purpose, either to manipulate you or to do anything like that, which is kind of scientific anyway. They just can't. Even if they wanted to, they just can't. They don't have that capacity to do that. So yeah, I think it's just, coming from that place of influencer fatigue as well, especially on social media. As you said, you see a lot of ads and influencers as well, right? They're always trying to sell you something. Sometimes all the scandals associated with human influencers as well. So I think especially when it comes to influencers, it started as kind of like genuine recommendations. And now it's, people are a bit more skeptical. So pets kind of bring that new, that freshness and that sincerity.
It sounds like if influencer fatigue was a real medical diagnosis, the cure might be a Pomeranian or a cat. Does it follow from this that pet influencer accounts are more easy to get followers than human influencer accounts?
We haven't tested whether they get more followers. What we have tested though is that they do get more engagement for sure. So they get more reactions, they get more likes, they get shared more. And of course, we have all the kind of behavioral intention that we have behind that. So being ready to spend more, for example, on an item that is endorsed by a pet versus a human. So in terms of followers, I guess it will also depend on, if you actually like pets, if you like seeing pets. But when it comes to endorsements, pets tend to be more persuasive, on social media.
Let's talk the ethics of it. Is it ethical to treat animals as ad spokespeople, even if they're adorable? Like behind the scenes with all the video takes and photo takes, like my cat, getting him to do something is like hurting a cat. Quite literally. If I were to make a funny video of him, I would be torturing him for an hour to try to get him to behave. I worry that's what's going on behind the scenes.
I agree. And actually, we've talked about this paper in other outlets as well. And every time I get a chance to talk about that paper, I also always mention that it's really important for people to not take that as just a way to make more money. So obviously, if you have a pet and you're happy, you're super proud of your pet and you want to post pictures and it's a nice way to make some extra money, good for you. If you don't have a pet and you're thinking about adopting a pet just to make some money, then that's where the issue is. And if you have a pet and you're forcing the pet to do something that it doesn't want to do, then that's also not good. So I think what matters as well is that we need to talk about it because obviously it's happening. It's, something that's happening. Pet influencers are on social media. And there's little kind of like guidance on how to do it, and regulations tend to take time, right, to be put into place. So if we start talking about it, if we start recognizing it as a real marketing strategy, then we need to have regulations in place as well. And you're right, it's definitely something that there was a raise in adoption rates just because of the pet influencers movement and COVID as well. And then people abandon the pets, and that's obviously what we're not advertising here. Really not.
Well, I feel like this has long been known by advertisers with Toucan Sam, Tony the Tiger, the MGM Lion, Coca-Cola's Polar Bear. It's just now being done by people with real animals. Well, Laura, thanks for talking to me about your study. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much.
Dr. Laura Lavertu is an assistant professor in marketing at the University of Strathclyde in Scotland. All right, let's keep discussing your little pet mittens. Specifically, what happens to mittens when you die if they're not in your will? Well, maybe not good things. However, when people do put their pets in their will, strange clauses are found. We'll cover pets and owner death and pet will clauses in a moment.
Part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Your nightly dose of unfiltered opinions and unexpected conversations. Unexpected conversations. The last show with David Cooper.
You can plan for your house, your money, even your priceless Beanie Babies when you die. But what about your pets? Cats don't pay rent, dogs don't help with the mortgage, yet often they outlive us. And we're here to discuss what to do with your animal in your will with Ian Hull, a partner at Hull & Hull in Toronto. Ian, what a pleasure it is.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
I have been doing a lot of pet talk this show. It's like the show Car Talk, but maybe less helpful. Animals are worth an insane amount to us in our minds, but the courts generally think they're only worth their purchase value. So if you adopted Fufu for $100 at the pound, that's what it's worth. But people care a lot about what happens to their pets, don't they?
Absolutely. I mean, it's remarkable to watch the stats. Of course, fertility rates are dropping like a stone in Canada, but pets ownership since COVID, like there's something like 77% of households have a companion animal. And it's remarkable, like 27 million pets in Canadian houses since 2020, sort of the numbers. So it is a huge part of people's lives.
It certainly is. And people value their pets an insane amount. And I think it just goes to show what they're willing to drop at the vet, you know?
Oh, for sure.
I wouldn't buy a car that had more than like a $50 monthly payment, but a pet, I would do $100 million to save my kitty if I had it. And I don't, but maybe someday. What happens to our pets when we unfortunately die? The nightmare is that I croak and the kitty's in the house left unfed and then get sent to the pound. Can I plan for my cat when I go?
You sure can. And there's some great, there's sort of three approaches that we can take in Canada. Each province has a little bit of a different twist. So you want to make sure you get some good local advice, but you can do sort of a pet stewardship program. Depending on the agencies that exist in your area, you can create a pet trust, and you can just gift a certain amount to someone called a successive owner, and then you can have enough money there for the pet to live out their lives that way. So it's kind of a direct way through to do it, a trust way, or through an organization. So there are definitely tools available.
Let's break those down. What exactly is pet stewardship or a pet stewardship program?
So that's where you can go to a local pet charitable organizations, where you can go to them and create an arrangement. It's actually a contract to steward the ownership of the pet until it passes away. So you're basically entering into an agency kind of deal where they will get what they call the caretaker to look after the pet, and you'll fund it.
Interesting. So I give the SPCA or whatever it is a little bit of money, draft up a contract, and when I, kick the bucket, little Fufu goes over to them and they take care of it according to the terms of that contract.
That's right. And it's not as useful. Like most people want to give the sort of create a situation where they've got someone directly that they know or they trust to take it over. And so that's the trust arrangement, where you create a trustee to get a certain amount of money given to that person, and that person then has that money in trust to use for the benefit of the pet. You usually set out some terms and some parameters of how you want it to live. Like there's some. Like Karl Lagerfeld died in 2019, and there was some really serious suggestions that he gave almost all of his fortune to his cat, because the cat lived on a private plane and had caviar for lunch and stuff like that. And so you could see where that trustee would have to kind of work around parameters that are a little different than the rest of us.
Look, I got a question. I always hear the word trust and trustee, and I use them like I know what they are. People say, I've got a trust. When I die, there'll be a trust. It's in trust. You hear about kids with a trust fund. What exactly does it mean in this context?
Well, it's really, there's only two ways you can give away something. You either give it outright, and there's no trust, or something with strings attached, which is a trust. So the trust has strings attached. It creates someone who's going to hold the money in trust for the benefit of someone else.
Or the benefit of little Fufu.
Fufu is in that case, the Fufu benefiter.
I mean, my cat's name is Tomato, but the same difference. Successive owner, maybe with a gift. What would that be?
Yeah, so that's just where you get out of a situation where you say, look, here's 20 grand to your neighbor. You look after the cat until Fufu dies, and it's literally a direct gift to the neighbor with sort of a condition that they will look after things.
Is putting pets in wills rare? Are we seeing it more and more?
I see it way more and more. It's, I mean, as I say, that's a huge percentage of pet ownership out there. It's one of the things that you ask a client now almost always and especially if you've got elderly clients, because it's crucial to make sure that they're looked after.
If my cat inherits my estate worth billions, what's stopping other people, maybe my kids, I don't have billions or kids, but imagine I did, stealing that money, or maybe not stealing, but not quite honoring what I wanted?
Well, you could challenge the will. You could say, listen, you were bonkers. What are you doing? You can't be giving, and I think it was around 2007, Leona Helmsley, who was a very, very rich American, she gave $12 million to her dog, and she gave like $2 million to her grandchildren. So I am sure there was some anger in that sort of human to pet relationship, but it happens.
Isn't that funny how all I'm hearing is 2 million to me as the grandkid. Great, I'm so happy. But people, they're never satisfied with what they get. They look at the dog and they say, that dog got more than me, I'm unhappy. Rather than saying, wow, $2 million, that's a lot of money, I'm happy.
Oh, it's never enough. Trust me, it's never enough.
Any other odd pet will clauses that you've heard of or seen in your practice?
Well, I think the key is when you set them up, you have to create a situation where you're handing the money to an appropriate third-party trustee, but you also have to have a place where it lands. And sometimes you get situations where on the death of the pet, there's some money left. Where does it go next? And I've seen some pretty creative gifting at that point, where they really want to poke the family in the eye, so they'll gift it to legitimately gift it to someone who's like the great uncle from Istanbul, and then they'll be like, what are you talking about? Why is he involved in this estate even at all? And things like that, where they can kind of jab the family a bit with the gift over, so to speak.
If you don't plan for it, and no one in your estate, none of your family members, none of your friends who you might leave something to or might be around when you die, if no one steps up, what's the worst that can happen here?
Well, that's the worst. And that's where the SPCA sort of will step in. And I've been involved in many estates where, an executor has control of the property. A pet is property at the instance of death. So you have to, as an executor, move quickly to literally herd the cats and deal with them. And sometimes it ends up they're going to the SPCA or whatever local organization. And that's not always it can typically be a grim ending for the pet.
Grim, you mean up for adoption, possibly put down, like that sort of thing?
Exactly.
Oh, goodness. Any advice for people who have pets or thinking about their will and anything to do there?
Well, I think you need to consider some clause and a measured amount of money. Excessive amounts of money does bring out a whole situation where people start to say, well, were they cognitively sensible at the time that they were giving that much money in proportion of their assets? Maybe the whole will is subject to attack just because they've given some sort of what the family might see as a crazy amount for a pet.
So you've got to consider the claws. I keep Tomato's claws quite trim, so that's how I consider my cat's claws. Wildest thing you've seen in a will having to do with a pet?
It just comes back to the some of these very wealthy individuals like the Leon Helmsley and things like that. I mean, $12 million is a lot of dough for a dog. And I think it's the amounts that they will put in, and then also they will put in the trust terms, literally what they will expect. Customizing it, like one of the wills, the Karl Lagerfeld one, they were talking about that he created customized Louis Vuitton cat carriers for the cat.
Who enforces this? You got to really trust the people overseeing your will to make sure that they listen to this garbage.
Absolutely. And that's the key, right? And often people will pick a trustee that isn't the main trustee. They'll literally set up sort of a sub-trust for the cat.
All right. Well, I'm here with a partner at Hull & Hull, a Toronto-based law firm. His name is Ian Hull. Ian, thank you for joining me and chatting about pets like this.
Awesome. Thank you.
We've all heard saunaing and then diving in cold water is good for us, right? But swimming in cold water is so good for you, it can change you on a cellular level. It might retrain your cells to handle stress better. I love a schwitz. So let's dig into the science together after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Your nightly rebellion against predictable radio and podcasts. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Freezing cold water swimming. Part wellness trend, part legalized torture, and definitely all over your internet feed. But it seems diving into cold water is good for you, like really good for you. Scientists say it might retrain your cells to handle stress better. I'm here with one of those scientists. She is an environmental physiologist at the University of Ottawa. Her name is Dr. Kelli King. Kelli, what a pleasure it is to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I love a cold plunge after I sauna, even though I hate a cold plunge after I sauna, because it's painful, it's awful, but it feels like it's good for you. It feels like when you jump in the cold water, you're doing something great for your body. So this is what I want to chat about. What is autophagy, like the definition of the word, and why should people care that it's improved by swimming in cold water?
Yeah, so autophagy is a cellular protective mechanism that exists in almost all of your cells. Pretty much any cell that has a nucleus and is able to make proteins has autophagy. And this mechanism essentially helps your body clear out any damage that is accumulated, especially during periods of stress, such as cold exposure. So it essentially will take any damaged proteins or organelles inside a cell and break it down into its most basic parts. So in the case of proteins, they'll break it down into amino acids. And then that way your body is able to essentially let your cells function better. And then in turn, it lets it survive the stress a little bit longer.
Sort of like a tune-up for the body. It's keeping it in good working order.
Exactly, yeah. It's like the body's recycling system.
And jumping into freezing cold water helps with it?
Yeah, so with our study, we wanted to see if they would change if you did repeated exposures. With the intensity of the cold that we initially chose, we did an hour at 14 degrees Celsius, which is pretty cold and pretty long.
Yeah.
But that one was definitely based on our previous research, based on what we would see actually dysfunction in this cellular mechanism. And we wanted to see, can you reverse this dysfunction by repeatedly exposing your cells to the stimulus? And we were able to see that.
Pretty cool. So walk me through how you actually studied it. You forced some schmuck to be in the cold water 1 hour every day for a week, and then you measured this person up to electrodes. Like, how does it all work?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So with this, we did 7 consecutive days of 14-degree water for an hour each. And then we took blood draws before and after the cold water immersion on the 1st, 4th, and 7th day. And we looked at the autophagy markers in your white blood cells or your immune cells to see how it would change, as well as some markers that would indicate that your body's under stress.
Well, I imagine the body is under stress when it first enters freezing cold water. That's part of why I like it. My body's screaming at me like, get out of here. Something bad's happening. And you kind of roll with that. And it feels like you're overcoming something from a health perspective. But what exactly happens when you first jump into cold water, especially not having done it for many days in a row?
Yeah, so there's a lot of changes both on the physiological, the mental, and the cellular side. You do see accumulation of damage on the cellular side, which is why that autophagy is really important. From a physiological side, you get a really massive change in your cortisol levels. So your fight or flight mode starts to activate. You see changes in your heart rate. You're getting a lot of redistribution of blood from your extremities to your core to keep you warm. And then mentally, you're because you have that fight or flight mode going on, you're starting to stress out. But then over time, you start to calm down, and then that's when you start to feel really good about the cold exposure.
Yeah, it's sort of like this amazing gauntlet that you can just run by doing the simple thing of jumping in cold water. Were you surprised by what happens after doing it for a week? Actually, you know what? I have a different question. I hope these clinical trial participants or these trial participants were getting paid, because this is like maybe legalized torture you're forcing upon them.
There was compensation involved, not as much as you would probably like to endure this, but a lot of the participants were actually really interested in participating just for the experience. There's people who have done cold exposure before, and they wanted to see like how it changed if you did it repeatedly. But I had a whole mix of individuals participating.
I was kidding. I mean, I assume people wanted to do this. There's all kinds of cultures around the world where people revel in doing this. It's a family activity. But back to the question I interrupted myself with. Did the findings surprise you at all? I feel like it is common wisdom that taking a cold plunge regularly is good for you. Did the findings confirm what you thought, or did they surprise you in any way?
Yeah, we definitely were hoping to see what we saw when it came to the autophagic response, that initial dysfunction would be reversed. There are some animal models that looked at it in heat stress, but it's never been looked at in humans. And we especially wanted to look at the autophagy mainly from the standpoint of applying it to individuals who may have dysfunction in their autophagy just at a basal level. So this could be applied to chronic conditions because your autophagy tends to get worse when you start developing chronic conditions. You get more accumulation of damage. It's not able to keep up with that damage output. And then also as we get older, we tend to see a decline in autophagy. And so we especially wanted to see it as a potential avenue to help promote healthy aging and potentially as a preventative measure when it comes to the development of chronic conditions.
And as it comes to that, are the results promising? Is it a good general piece of wisdom based on your study to jump in cold water to help your immune system and such as you age?
I would definitely say it's promising, but we're also very early to be able to make large claims such as that. That said, it's definitely something I'm looking into pursuing in the future when it comes to the next steps in the studies, is looking at those individuals, such as older adults that may have that declined autophagy, and seeing if there is a different response than, say, a young, healthy male.
So when I go to the doctor, I'm unlikely to get a prescription to jump into ice cold water if my immune system is low, at least not right now.
Maybe not quite yet, but keep in mind also, because autophagy is so universal in our body, cold water is not the only thing that stimulates it. There's also like an exercise, heat stress, like pretty much any kind of physiological stress that you undergo. Keeping in mind, it does have to be fairly intense for it to activate. It does have a lot of different ways to stimulate it.
You looked at young men only for the study, correct?
Correct.
Any predictions based on what you know on how it would affect women or older individuals? Do you expect it to affect them in the exact same way?
When it comes to women, that is also a very interesting question, because we have the sex hormone estrogen that actually acts as a cytoprotective mechanism. And when it comes to autophagy, it's actually thought that that estrogen actually acts as a cytoprotective mechanism in place of autophagy. And you really only see that autophagy activate when your body's in a extreme case of stress, and it's just trying to essentially take any potential issues and just like shut it down. So that's more of that controlled cellular death that it's more involved in. That said, when it comes to women and autophagy, it's very new, especially when it comes to humans. And so that's actually one of the things that we're looking into in how estrogen modulates autophagy and how that interaction works. And so then that way we can start incorporating women into our studies and applying it a lot more at a larger base.
Sounds interesting. Well, thanks for talking to me. It sounds like I should go to the sauna and have a cold plunge, do a schwitz after this interview. I appreciate your time, Kelli.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Dr. Kelli King is an environmental physiologist at the University of Ottawa. All right, some things to tell you, listener, singular intended, about. Want to get in touch with the show? Leave us a voicemail. Got any feedback? Creatively bad feedback, definitely appreciated. Give us a phone call. The number is 1-888-505-6644. That's 1-888-8888. That's too many eights. That's 1-888-505-6644. Send us a text message. It's a toll-free number. Also, like anything you heard tonight but you tuned in late, or you're going to miss us on a given night, well, the last show is available as a podcast. Just head to www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza, not .com, pizza. And there you can find out more information about our podcast and links to all our social media accounts. Give the show a follow. All right, we'll end the show with this, a voicemail from my mom from 15 years ago, and I will give you exactly zero context on this one.
Hi, Dave. It's Mom calling, honey. Please give me a call. I just spoke to Booby Flowy. She feels really bad that you're not going to be at her party. She just told me, why can't you leave tomorrow? It's different if you had left a few days ago, but to just leave the day of her party, she says she really feels bad. She doesn't know how many more birthdays she's going to have, and can't you please leave tomorrow? So I'm just telling you what she said, and you can make your own decisions, but call me back. Thanks. Bye.
It was like 8 more years, 8 more birthdays. I'm David Cooper. We'll be back next week. This was The Last Show.